Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Grassroots, the show that will explore the issues and answers that affect you, our city, and the surrounding area. Grassroots is hosted by lawyer, businessman, and columnist Tom Courington. Grassroots is a presentation of P-Head Productions. Grassroots is produced and directed by John Gray, with Associate Producer Jim Fuller, Associate Director Joe Henry, Sound Director John Parsons, and technical support by MPA Business Products. Grassroots is brought to you by Paul's Restaurant at the American Legion, by MPA Business Products, and by Life Communications and Securities. Now sit back and let Tom and his guest bring you today's edition of Grassroots. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special edition of Grassroots. I'm John Gray, one of the principals involved in P-Head Productions, and we've been producing local television for 27 years here in our surrounding area. And my guest today on Grassroots is the host of Grassroots for the past 20 years, Mr. Tom Courington. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, John. Nice of you to invite me to the last show.
Well, you know, this is going to be Tom's last show, and we wanted to do a kind of a special show and a couple of things today for Tom to show our appreciation for 20 years of service, not just to us, but to the community, the surrounding area. Without Tom Courington's knowledge, energy, expertise, and research, you know, there's a whole lot of things that we, the citizens of this area, wouldn't have known without him bringing it before us. And for that, we want to say thank you. Where's this little piece of paper here? Over 500 shows you've done.
20 years.
20 years.
Well, I didn't add it
to
up.
a month, 12 months a year. That's 24 a year times 20 years is 480, and you've done some extras, so I just said 500.
Wow.
30 plus election shows in that time. That might have been more than that, because a lot of those years we had election in the spring, and you know, when it was when you had a primary.
Yeah.
So that number might be a little bit low. Over 200 politicians interviewed, either in the forum where we would bring them on and let them talk to each other, sort of an interview about who to vote for. Yeah. For our public, or the Judd Matheny's and the Davis, Lincoln Davises,
we had to invite
a bunch of them.
We had to invite them on to tell us what they had done.
Tell us the truth. Well,
yeah.
Or tell us what we assumed they wanted us to think was the truth. Janice Bowling.
Yeah.
Up until recently, you know, the new ones that have been on. Probably at least 100 plus or minus nonprofits. You know, we've had a lot of nonprofit entities on the air that fundraising type folks, that good things happening that you've spent time with to understand their situation, their goals, how they wanted to go about achieving those goals, and you were generous enough to bring them on here and spend 30 minutes with them to help their cause. Let's see, government board.
I never got a commission either.
No. Government board or committee meetings, chair people. At least 100 plus of those. Industry and school CEOs, everybody from the mechanical school over in Shelbyville to Dr. Dan Lawson to the presidents of Motlow, and then just various other politicians, firemen, police, CEOs, chamber executives, You know, anything that's happened in our community and the surrounding area for 20 years that needed discussing, my friend, lawyer, businessman, journalist Tom Courington has delved into that. And this is a way that we want to say thank you for all you've done.
Busy boy.
Busy boy is right. Now, what we're going to do that we usually do at this point in the show is take a short commercial break, and we'll be back with more.
Okay.
The glory days. Running to daylight on the gridiron. And chasing a ball with a mind of its own. Cheering the team to victory. And marching to the beat of your own drum. Memories that last a lifetime. But sometimes we're reminded of our glory days in ways we'd rather forget. Get back in the game.
The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live and play well.
Welcome back, folks. Today's guest is the host of this show for the last 20 years, Mr. Tom Courington. You know, I was talking a minute ago to you, Tom, about the fact that it's probably been 20 years since you introduced yourself to people and told them, like you asked your guest to do, tell us something about Tom Courington. You know, a lot of these people who watch you and love you on this show don't know the background of Tom Courington. Would you mind giving us just a little short blurb on that?
Oh, well, I don't know. That may take the rest of the show, John.
Make it quick.
Yeah, turns out some respects I'm not too far from home. I was born in Alabama in Walker County, which is only about 125 miles away. Went to school there, did my college work at the university, both undergraduate and a law degree, and spent most of my career in the business world. So I was really primarily a corporate lawyer, and that was just pretty nearly my whole career. And we wound up, the last job in that field wound up here in Tullahoma. Prior to that, we had lived all over the country. My poor wife, Sue, I dragged her around and started her over for 6 times, I think, different parts of the country.
Everything from Washington, D.C. to California.
To San Diego, yep. So, and that wound up here, and when I retired, I had an itch to try to write a little bit, some form. And turns out there was a nice young man becoming the editor of a brand new paper over in Manchester, and I talked to him about doing a column for him, and he agreed to that. So I spent about 3 years doing writing a column, a weekly column, and then there was a little falling out among the folks in that paper, and they wound up closing it or selling it or something. So there I was, 3 years as a journalist and out of a job.
Well, what was the name of the column you wrote?
Grassroots.
Imagine that, folks.
Yeah, fancy that. And so I was wandering around over here one day, and don't remember why or how, and John comes up and says, well, why don't we just do Grassroots on the air? And that was a bit of a shock, but I thought about that and said, well, that's a possibility. We can give it a try. So that's how we got started here, and that was January of 1999. And I pulled one of these out of my file. This is a notice that John drafted, telling the community about Grassroots.
That's right.
Asking them to have a look.
Tom and Sue moved to town to go to work with Cubic, and they ended up living on the end of the street where Fran and I live on Autumn Lane, and we became friends, and then we became fast and dear friends, and we sort of adopted them into our circle, and they had Thanksgiving with us for years, and we ended up going to the same church, and that's how we got into the discussion about Tom coming in and doing a show. And we at P-Head Productions are just elated that this has gone on for as long as it has, and have had the expertise of a gentleman with the training and skills that Tom has. There's one thing I've always said about Tom is that I had another friend, Teddy Bart, who was a very, very good interviewer, because Teddy was a very good listener. And he was known all over the United States. And one of the reasons why is he would not only ask a question, but he would listen to the answer. And Tom is that way. He comes into his interviews with information, but no preconceived answers. He allows his guests to tell the story. And there's a lot of folks in our country today don't lend their guests that type of latitude. And you've been very good and conscientious in what you do.
Well, I had an objective, which I guess is sort of journalism, should be journalism in addition, and that is to be objective and fair and factual, among others. Tell it like it is. And so really the purpose of the whole thing was to try to give the audience out there information that would help them if they had a choice coming up, which we all do at least at election time.
Oh, of course.
And other things that we do and buy. So.
But one of the great things, and what I'd like, Sue, if you would make your way up here, around behind the cameras over there, and Fran or somebody, John, might want to help her up the step over here.
Behind the camera, Sue.
One of the things that Tom has done is, there's a whole lot of things that go on in a community that a lot of people don't know about and would never know about without somebody doing the research to do that. And Tom has done that. And right now, as soon as we get the cameras where they need to be, I want to introduce his lovely bride and one of those dear, dear ladies that you meet from time to time. They're a perfect couple because they're both just incredible folks. And that's Miss Sue Courington, and she's on the set with us right now. And thank you, Sue, for allowing us to take, And I've talked to Tom about this, and Sue as well. You just don't do what he does in a minute or two. He spends a lot of time weekly developing his show, and that's time that he doesn't get to spend with her. Now, of course, she hauls him off from time to time, but Sue has been one of the driving forces behind this. Even behind me, Sue will call me up and say, "Well, you have too much stuff on the set today." Yeah. I didn't like that flower, which is fine. We all need directions given from time to time, and Sue is a very dear and very smart lady, and they're just a perfect pair. And before we take this next commercial break, I just wanted to make sure that Tom gets a chance to say what he'd like to say about this to Sue.
Well, John's absolutely correct. Sue has been a very splendid wife. I couldn't have asked for anything more. And she has been alongside all of my endeavors, including this one, has had a lot of ideas along the way, and helped with rounding up guests and hauling me around. And I'm very indebted and very grateful for that. And she's also been instrumental in helping all of us come to the conclusion that it was time to wrap it up.
Well, you've done an outstanding job, and Sue, thank you for your support throughout the years, and not only in here involving this, but involving a whole lot of the lives of the people in this community. The two of you have been outstanding in what you've done. And with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Keith Barnett here at Russell Barnett Kia in Tullahoma. Check out the 2019 fully loaded V6 Kia Sorento, up to $6,400 off original MSRP. That's Russell Barnett Kia in Tullahoma, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. And remember, why buy anywhere else?
All right, folks, we're back, and I'm here with Tom Courington, the host of Grassroots, who today is the guest on Grassroots. And Tom, we've gone back, you talking about people who have helped put this together for years, Philip Scoggins, Andrew Todd. Philip has gone back into the archives and found your first show and your first guest. We're going to bring that right now.
Greetings and welcome to Grassroots. Our guest this morning is Mayor Lane Curlee. As you recall, Mayor Curlee was re-elected last summer, and he declared at that time that this was going to be his last time to run for mayor, and that, as a matter of fact, he would be probably retiring from public service at the end of this term. So we want to spend a little time this morning talking with Mayor Curlee about his tenure up to this point and his plans for finishing out, and we also have a couple of immediate concerns we want to touch on. So welcome, Lane.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Is it still your intention to hang it up at the end of this term?
Oh, it is. I've made no secret about that. I was first elected alderman of the city of Tullahoma on August the 5th, 1982. And then served for 2 years there, and then was elected to the General Assembly and worked there for 8 years. And at the conclusion of this term as mayor, that will be 9 years service as mayor. Total all that up, believe it or not, this term ends on August the 5th, 2002. That's 20 years of public service. And although I enjoy very much all 3 roles I've had over the years, there are several reasons why I decided that this would probably be my last term as mayor.
For the time being, at least, you think 20 years will be enough.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's take a short commercial break, folks, and then we'll come right back and get into the show.
Earlier, Tom had spoken about writing for a newspaper for a young man by the name of Latham Davis. My wife Fran is on stage with us right now, and she has some correspondence from Latham that she would like to share with Tom.
Oh.
Yeah, Tom. Latham regrets that he's not able to be here today, but he has sent you a letter. And in essence, it says that he regrets that he's not kept up with you more closely over these years. And he said that even in the news leader days, he would read your columns hastily and often very late at night. And he doesn't remember taking the time to compliment you on your work. But he said that time was a blur, it was a hectic time, and he was distracted by the business management of the paper. He said, clearly we needed an editorial editor as well as a managing editor, which we could not afford. But he says, to your credit, you rode above this turmoil and continued to write an excellent column. For how many years I cannot remember. And in those years I received numerous appraisals of your wise and clear insights. I would compare you now to the columnist David Brooks. You would have done well on Mr. Brooks' world stage. So kudos to you from Latham Davis. And he wants to see you in the near future. Since he is no longer in journalism and has moved up on the mountain, he's become very committed to conservation, and he's active with parks, and so he thinks that he would love to get together with you. And I said, well, Latham, I'll make sure that happens. So he's looking forward to visiting with you face to face.
Well, good. I'm very moved and appreciative of that letter. I thought a great deal of Latham. I think he was not only very smart, very upright, and a super editor. So it was extremely unfortunate that they couldn't make the newspaper, rest of the newspaper, behave itself, and he wound up having to leave. And I thought a great deal of him, and so I do appreciate his thought. And I look forward to getting together with him.
Well, that's right.
So.
We'll get together.
And didn't Tom interview you one time?
Yes, he did. At the time, I was working at our church, and this gentleman came in one day, and he was cordial enough and very, very serious, and he wanted to know everything I could possibly tell him about the Christian church, Disciples of Christ. And I thought, oh my, I'm on the witness stand here, because he had some very pointed questions. And I'm glad, though, that he put me to the test. And as a result, he became an elder in our church, very active Sunday school teacher. And the rest is history.
There you go.
So thank you for interviewing. I hope I passed.
Yes, you did.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, after that, with Fran and Tom, the only thing we could do is play one of the early interviews of Tom Courington with Bob Couch.
Occasionally, there's an event that takes place in a community that changes things forever, such that things will never be the same again. And there was an event of that sort in Tullahoma's history that was represented by the selection of Camp Forest to be located here. And today we have with us our Tullahoma's historian and photographer, Mr. Bob Couch. And Bob is going to go over with us the establishment of the camp and the legacy that has resulted from that. So welcome, Bob. Thanks for joining us. I notice you brought with you a little treasure over there. You want to, what is that?
Well, we'll get to that later, but we have a wonderful piece of Camp Forest that when it was raised in 1946, the post headquarters building was being torn down, and we found this flag next to a garbage can that they were getting ready to dispose of it, and we rescued it, and very fond of this because it was the flag that flew there from 1941 to 1946, and from time to time former soldiers would come by and visit with us that were stationed there, and we'd clip off a little end that was ragged anyway and give them a little piece as a souvenir as to their service at Camp Forest, and we treasure this very highly.
It really is a treasure.
Boy, it sure is.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a commercial break, folks, and then we'll come back and get into Camp Forest.
All right, folks, what we're going to do is take a quick commercial break and be back with another guest.
The wait is finally over. The all-new redesigned Ford Ranger is back at Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma. Stop and test drive one today at Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma on Highway 55, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. And remember, my question is, why buy anywhere else?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and we have a surprise guest today. You know, as we opened the second segment of this show, we brought the original first show in where Mayor Lane Curlee was the first interview that Tom Courington had, and he said after that term, he was giving up public service, and that's been 20 years ago. Lane Curlee, Mayor of Tullahoma, Tennessee, thank you, my friend, for being with us today.
I've been looking forward to visiting. This is a special day.
We figured like some of those big TV guys, you know, who was it, Philip? David Letterman. For his first show, he had Bill Murray, and his last show, he had Bill Murray. Yeah. So we figured Tom's first show was Mayor Lane Curlee. His last show needs to be Lane Curlee. Tom, it's all yours, my friend.
Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Lane, and it's a fun season, and I was particularly reminded of the fact that at that time you were serving your last term. As soon as that was over, you were going to hang it up. You'd had enough years of service. So
I guess
here,
back by popular request.
here we are about 20 years later, and I don't know. Whether I should ask you the same question or not.
It's winding down. There's no question about it. No
Winding down.
But we're here to recognize you, okay, and to thank you. So we have had prepared, and you're one of the very, very few people, maybe only one or two others, that have received 2 certificates from me. One on your birthday.
Right.
You might remember that. But now this was a little bit different. This one is special also. This says City of Tullahoma Certificate of Recognition presented to Tom Courington on behalf of the 18,655 citizens that call Tullahoma home, and by the authority vested in me as Mayor of Tullahoma, I now therefore proclaim Thursday, October 31st, 2019, in celebration of 20 years of community service, hosting Grassroots, informing and educating citizens on matters of interest and importance to the residents of Tullahoma as Tom Courington Day in Tullahoma, and urge and beseech all citizens to recognize the same, and a special thank you. So, Mr. Courington, when I sign this, it's officially your day in Tullahoma.
Oh, very good.
Yep.
I better come up with something to spend it on.
And if you take this to Dairy Queen, you might get an ice cream.
Yeah.
That's about all you're going to get, probably.
I see. And dare I ask you, when you say you're winding down, that's going to take a while.
Well,
what are you up to, 35 years of public service?
Well, let's see. There was 5 years as alderman, 8 years in the Tennessee General Assembly, and then when this term is up, that'll make 18 years as mayor. So that'll make 31 years.
Well, folks, I think we're all greatly indebted to Lane. He's an outstanding example of a true public servant, and a very capable one at that, fortunately. So we will look forward to your finishing that service wherever it takes us.
Notwithstanding all the times that I've been on Grassroots and you've drilled to me about different things that I was doing wrong or could do better.
Well, what I'd like to say to both of you right now is thank you both for what you've done, and we appreciate the service from both of you. Tom, especially you, for what you've done and accomplished here. And what we want to do right now is we want to bring the whole crew out here that helped put this on, and we're going to give everybody in the audience a wave goodbye and let them know that, as Bob Couch might say, this is not the end of the story, because something else will take place, and something always does. It'll be different, but hopefully, well, there's no way it'll ever be able to equal what Tom has done. But we here at Channel 6 hope to continue to educate and enlighten the people in our community about important stuff. So let's get everybody out here. Are y'all going to just stand? Sit. Jimmy, come right over here. You need to be right here next to me in the middle of this. There we are.
Well,
Mr. Tom.
Yeah, y'all all just want to wave goodbye. Goodbye, folks.
Well,
Tom, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
I want to say a word to the fact that this crew here are responsible for making Grassroots a success, as much of a success as it was. And I owe them a very heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us in your parlor. We'll see you somewhere down the road.